Good day traders, Stacey Burke from Stacey Burke Trading, going over our daily FX levels for the British pound crosses for Monday, April 6th, 2020, and just looking at this week's calendar. Tonight in the US, President Trump is scheduled to speak. Then we have the Bank of Canada Business Outlook Survey. But coming later in the week, we have the Aussie dollar Reserve Bank rate announcement in tomorrow. Again, the British pound Aussie, we could see the market move strongly or move unidirectionally today, preparing to possibly make a bigger move on that rate announcement, maybe even in the opposite direction, dragging traders further away from the real trend they want to move it towards. Then we have the OPEC meetings, the ECB monetary meetings on Thursday, and then Canada, obviously probably the stronger data towards the end of the week, the employment, unemployment claims, and then US unemployment and CPI and core CPI on Friday. So obviously a few red news events, and looking at our charts, again, the Aussie dollar and the Canadian could be big movers as we move towards those announcements, preparing they could shift traders in one direction before moving it on the rate announcement violently back in the opposite direction. Looking at the pound Aussie, we saw a micro trend line break at the end of the week. That market had been staying in that upper 250 pip box for the second half of the week. We saw one push, two push, three pushes to the high before it pulled back and consolidated, tried to break into the next 250 pip box, but then stayed underneath. And then this morning dropping down on a gap on the open. That 250 level could act as support. We do have pins, and we had a strong move out of that box, so we could see them protect that 250 area with our rising trend line. If we go, that's the 4-hour chart, we do see these green lines are all the highs and lows where obviously there are stop losses present. We see that this morning on the gap, the stop loss were hit from Friday's pin support area, where traders obviously had been possibly in the breakout or using that as an area for limit ordering. If we go to our 15-minute chart, I've just scrunched this up. You can see where this last drive to the high began. We saw that market make a high, retested it, dropped down, retested it again, giving us a double top in that Friday session. The market tried to get back above there and then gapped down. This morning we opened on a gap. They've retested that in that upper 400 pip box level, so we're still currently inside of a 100 pip box. They took out the lows from Thursday's session. They've made a new overall low. We could see this area act as an anchor point for one push, two push, a third push, maybe stop hunt high in the Europe Open. We'll move this out a little bit further for traders to see that. Stop hunting back up into the highs before possibly rolling over and retesting the low of today and heading back down towards the lows from the pin bar on Wednesday. And then of course where that whole move began up last Tuesday, Tuesday's low, we saw one push, two push, three pushes to the high, and that market is rolled over and is showing weakness by taking out that last low to the high. So if we see stop hunt high holding below the peak, or even taking the peak out but giving us a sell somewhere off of 50, we could see them retest the low of the day. If that market was to stop hunt low and rise, we could see them take out the highs and head back towards the overall high of the day. Currently, this market has been making new lows. We could see that market stop hunt high. If we see that heading into that hour of London after the first hour, if they stop hunt high sideways, I'll be expecting a retest of the low. Our next pair, pound Canadian. Again, we talked about that pair possibly being a big mover later this week. We saw a trend line break last week after one push, two push, three pushes, lower double top, and then a shift down. That market also stuck in the 250 pip box below the high. We could see this 72.50 area act as support. There are stops down below Friday's low. The market tested that gap from Friday on the open this morning. and pinned up to the upper part of that 7,500 pip box on our 4-hour. This 15-minute chart, again, just scrunching this up to see where this move all began. We can see a week ago Friday that market was already in an up drive from the 25th. So we began our whole move up towards the peak from down, we'll just let everybody see this, down below the 6,700 area. We saw a peak formation put in place on Tuesday. The market retested that. It couldn't quite get up above that 7,700 area by much. Came back down, retested it again on Thursday, dropped down before taking out the last low before the high on Friday's session. Now again, we had a bit of a rising trend line for a bigger geometrical pattern for symmetrical triangle breakout, as well as the upper rectangle breakdown. They retested that confluence area before breaking down another 100 pips. Now, if this last low before the high, this breakout of this trading range, was to continue to fulfill a measured move, that could possibly take us around down to the 70-50 area for a full expansion. We can see there's stops below all these higher lows on the way up. They've already taken out these higher lows from last Monday and Tuesday, made a new low on Friday. If we expand our chart out, we can see again today this market has on the open tested the highs, put pins up top, dropped down back inside of the 100 pip box. Engulfment pattern sideways. We're now below the 50. Again, we can see this market stop hunt into the traders from Asia. We may not see them take out any highs. We've had a shift candle, so 50 could act as a potential selling area for the continuation down. If this market was to stop hunt low and come back up into the upper 7,200 pip box, 7,300 pip box, we could see a trend line break and possibly a retest up into this 74.50 area. But for now, this market has been making new lows. We're respecting that falling trend line. Again, if we stop hunt high into 50 into the traders who are short from Asia, we could see this market retest the lows and also possibly head down towards fulfilling our measured move along the way down in that 70-50 area. Again, stop hunt high, I'd expect a drop. If this market was to break down this 7,300 area, could act as a bit of a breakout pullback for a continuation as well. So instead of 50, the market could continue to come down and retest the lows, pull back, and continue that move down. But again, if that market was to respect 7,300 and give us a trend line break, we could see a retest of 7,300 for a move back up towards 7,400. For now, though, making lower lows, we do have a range expansion target at 70.50. Pound Swiss, our next pair. Again, another pair that had a trend line break on Friday after making significant continuous upward movements. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3 to the high on Friday. We can see there are stops underneath the 4-hour charts. We're in the 2,000 to 1,750 box currently. There are lots of stops on the downside. We did have a breakout 2 weeks ago. This market possibly could find support in that lower part of the box. When we go to our 15-minute chart, we can again see that this pair broke down on Friday. We had a retest into the Asian peak before engulfing below 50 and moving downwards, retesting the 00 box. 1, 2, 3. Dropping down 1, 2, 3 again to the upper part and gapping down this morning. We've had a 1, 2, 3 into that 50 area. We could see another stop hunt high for the drop down, continuing that move down. Again, if we were to put a measured distance on this pair, actually even just using numbers, if we were to go to 50 and the high. This pair could possibly still have movement down to this 1825, 1850 area. Now again, just scrunching this chart up, we can see that this market has had some legs, but most recently on Wednesday that they began another leg up. And again, just coming back to the options of stop hunting back up into Asia for the move down, or possibly coming down through the low of the day, retesting underneath, and then continuing its move towards the lower stops. Next pair up, pound yen. This pair last week we had a 1, 2, 3 into the upper high area where it had stop hunted, and then it dropped down, giving us a trendline break and stayed sideways. Currently there's support around 3250, and we may have resistance up around this 3400 area. We looked at this pair last week and noticed that it had sort of consolidated sideways, even though it was making some new lows, showing some weakness. It's retested that low area, but interestingly enough, this morning on the gap down, it took out the low of Friday, then pinned up, and then broke through into that upper 100 pip box. So we're above the gap high that gave us our low this morning. This market may find support around that 3300 area, working its way back down or stop hunting back into 3300 before moving up and retesting the high of the day and the high of Friday. The other consideration is this pair could still possibly stop hunt high into 50 and retest the lows. Currently, after breaking higher, I'm looking to see this pair possibly find support around 3300 and a retest back up towards the high of the day. Next up is pound New Zealand. This pair is another pair that demonstrated a breakout this morning on the gap. We had a 1, 2, 3 at the end of last week and a bit of a bull flag that broke down, gapped on this morning's open. We have a bit of a micro trend line break now. This pair did have the potential of doing a measured move up as far as the 1500 area. But now we're going to see if this 750 area will act as potential support. We did have a bit of a upper symmetrical triangle possibly forming. Again, this market made new lows on Friday, breaking out of, we had a lower where this original drive up started Thursday. We held up in that upper 100 pip box before breaking down later in the Friday session after payrolls. 1 push, 2 push, 3 pushes, and then gapping down this morning. They've retested the gap in that upper 900 pip box. They've come off the double zeros and dropped down to stop hunt the low again, working back up into the 50 area underneath of Friday's low, dropping down. We could see this market break down through Thursday's lows and pull back into the double zeros for a continuation down. This market has the potential to do a measured move downwards if it was to continue, possibly into that 550, 525, 500 area. If it was to break down and resume its downward trend, we do see that this market has a fairly large gap to fill, and it has gone 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, drop down. We're seeing that weakness. Now, on the upside, if this market was to find support, as we can see, it's making lower highs but not going any lower unless we see this low of the day break through Thursday's low. This market still has the potential to stop hunt down low to retest these highs. So we'll see if this 800 area and Thursday's low can hold. If not, I would be looking for a possible measured move down towards testing that 550 area. Now again, the important part is paying attention to how that Europe-London session crossover, which direction they move. Lastly, we got the British pound. Again, the British pound had held high up into that upper part of the 2500 pip box before dropping down, giving us a bit of a breakout of that upper box on Friday after payrolls, taking out the low of the week this morning and breaking down into that lower 2500 box area and consolidating. If we look at our 15-minute chart, we can see that we had a break of that upper rectangle. If we take our highs and our lows, we see that the market has broken down and consolidated and sort of holding steady underneath of 2250. If we were to see that market stop hunt high at the Europe London Open and hold under 2250, we could see them retest the lows and continue down for a measured move, or break down and pull back, retesting the lows. Now this market would have to show a fairly strong break above 2250 and a pullback to continue that move up, hitting stops of traders who shorted that market on Friday. So again, we do have weakness on some of these pairs for possible measured moves down to fill some of these gaps. And as you can see on the 4-hour, there's a fairly large amount of space downwards. Just close out with a quote from Alexander Elder. The goal of a successful trader is to make the best trades. Money is secondary. Focus on flawless execution of your trading process, traders. It's going to be another great week for movement in the markets. Stay disciplined, stay focused, stick to your trading plan, and may the markets go with you.
Hi traders, it's Stacey Burke from Stacey Burke Trading. If you haven't done so, please head over to my website at staceyburketrading.com. I create updates on almost a daily basis, and I would love for you to receive them. Just click on the blog. If you want to enter your name and your email address, I'll send you my free audio program, the 7-Step Daily Routine for High-Performance Traders. This is essential knowledge for all traders in all markets, and this is for helping traders to master the market with discipline, confidence, and a winning mindset. I appreciate all your feedback and comments. As always, traders, stay disciplined, and may the markets go with you.